Hey, what's going on, everyone? Was hoping for a happy victory Monday, but it is not. Chargers have lost 16-3 in the playoffs to New England Patriots. Rough game, guys. Rough game. Herbert got battered and bruised at the end. We couldn't get the running game going. No Amari and Hampton. He had only one carry, which the gamblers are really upset about that he only had one carry. He got stuffed. He didn't look right. He had a big bulky knee brace, so he wasn't ready to go. Which continues a tradition with the Chargers of having great running backs like LT who just simply get injured at the wrong time and can't perform in the playoffs. And speaking of can't perform in the playoffs, everyone's going to be blaming Justin Herbert. He didn't have a great game. He underthrew Ladd. He missed some people who were open. But the thing that doesn't get talked about a lot is the coverage. These receivers weren't getting open, and that's something we expect from Ladd, from Keenan, who had two big drops. One on a big play that could have extended a drive. And what do you do with Keenan Allen after this season? Do you let him go? You say thanks, thanks for everything you've done. Do you bring him back for one more year? What do you guys think? Does that stunt the growth of our young receivers? Trey Harris, Keandre Lambert-Smith, even Ladd McConkey didn't have the kind of season we expect to see from Ladd. And is that because Keenan's there? These are all tough things, and people are going to question Herbert and if he can step up in the playoffs, and that's fair until he proves he can. There's always going to be this question, and I felt he proved it in his first playoffs against Jacksonville. He had a good game. He had almost 300 yards. He had a touchdown. Hey, Felice, bolt up. Yeah. Yeah. Drop your comments. Let me know any questions or anything that's on your mind. Yeah, I mean, those questions are fair. I feel like Herbert with a competent offensive line can take us where we need to go in the playoffs. But obviously, we didn't have that this year. You need to get a new center. You can't have Bradley Bozeman as your starting center. I'm fine with him as the backup. We need to fire Greg Roman, of course. Everybody's been saying these things. You need to get rid of Mekhi Becton. He was not the answer at right guard that we wanted him to be. Super Bowl champion, but he was injured most of the time and did not look right. Trevor Penning played better than Mekhi Becton, but it'd be nice to have Penning as a backup too. You need a right guard. You need and you need another swing tackle because you're getting Joe Alt back, and you may get Slater back next year. He went down with the Achilles, which is 50-50 whether he recovers at all. People don't want to talk about that. We want Slater and Alt back, but the reality is Slater may not be back, guys, and that clouds the picture even more, for how much we need Slater in a good O-line, already needing a center and a right guard. Yeah, I'm talking about I'm getting a comment. What are you talking about? I'm talking about what we need for next year. It's already on to next year. We lost this game 16-3. The Patriots beat us fair and square. They were the better team. What else can you really say about this game? They brought it. We were good on defense. Our defense was great. Hopefully Jesse Minter's back, but he's getting so many offers, calls from other teams to interview. I don't see Jesse Minter coming back, and that's another big blow to the team if we don't have Jesse Minter, because then you got to worry about the defense too, which was solid and all season and solid in the playoffs. And and the O line really killed us all season long. Justin Herbert was Superman, guiding us to 11 wins when we shouldn't have had that. So now you look to next year, because you can't go into next year without an O line. You need an offensive coordinator who can scheme guys up and get guys open, because we weren't doing it with Greg Roman. Oh, bang, bang, Niners game in the house. Yeah, Niners, man. Niners did it, beat the champion Eagles. Hats off to the Niners. Yeah, so someone's saying, yeah, I won't call him that, but they're saying Justin Herbert, isn't it? And there's going to be those questions. Yeah, I mean, they say it's going to be a world war in 2027. All right, I can't look at. Yeah, that may be true. I can't look ahead that far, guys. Yeah, someone said, a vaccinator says, I'm a Herbert apologist, and I agree with you on the O line. But is there a point where we need to look harder at him? Sure. If Herbert has the O line next year, if you get a healthy Slater and Alt back next year, and you get a new center, like the Ravens center that everybody's been talking about, and you draft a right guard. I'm just trolling. I'm a Tua fan. Can't stand the hate Tua gets. Herbert ain't that bad. Has O line. His cheeks. Yeah, bad O line. So if you get a great O line next season, and Herbert still has trouble in the playoffs, then you really need to start questioning, is Herbert the guy? Because Herbert has weapons right now. He had Keenan, who was dropping the ball. He had Ladd. He had QJ, who didn't do anything in this playoffs. He had Gatson. And nobody really showed up. It's sad, because he had all these weapons, but same problem as always, no O-line. Herbert got battered to hell when the blitz started in the fourth quarter, because these guys can't pick up stunts. And Herbert just, you saw the pain, you saw the hurt. And before that, Herbert, he just, I'm going to say it was on the receivers too. The receivers weren't getting open a lot, it seemed like. And Herbert did miss throws when they were open. So it's a combination of everything coming together. I'm not going to put it all on Herbert, but he did not have the Superman type of game that he had all season to carry the Chargers to the playoffs. So, that part is on Herbert, and he knows that. And he was asked about it last night, about his playoff failures. And he said, he doesn't know the answer. And it's a fair thing, until he gets that O-line that he needs, until he gets a new OC, this is what we're going to have. This is what we're going to see. And every Charger fan, Mountain Ishim, I appreciate the comments, guys. Keep them going. Even Dolphin fans and Niner fans here, it's a tough day. Anytime your team loses, it's a tough time, and you got to look at what the team needs to change. Chargers are him. Yeah, the Chargers are Herbert, man. You go down with the ship, and just like when Phillip Rivers was here, you were only going to go as far as Rivers took you, and Rivers didn't have an O-line either. So it's a weird place to be in, because Harbaugh, always talks about O-line, tip of the spear, and it hasn't happened yet. For whatever reason, they haven't drafted enough O-line. We did draft alt. We got Slater. Um, yeah, it's a tough time when I'm sick. Yeah, hey, all Charger fans are sick right now after what happened last night. You should be sick after seeing the team play the way they did, only scoring 3 points. Chargers need a better offense. Yep. It's not just the line. The offensive scheme was trash. Agreed. You had multiple trips to the red zone, largely off of turnovers from the defense, and you couldn't punch it in for a score. You know, no Armarian Hampton either. Rookie riddled with injuries. Yeah, he had an injury-plagued year after not having any injuries. He never missed a game in his college career, and he missed a lot. He got injured. Najee Harris got injured, which was a big injury for us. A lot of people forget because you know, he tore his knee up and only played one game. And yeah, we needed Najee, we needed Omari, and we needed a run team to beat the Patriots because the receivers weren't getting open. Roman wasn't scheming guys open, so you had to have a run game to be able to win that game last night, and they just didn't have it. Herbert had a few runs. He had, I think 56 yards, something like that. We needed more runs from Herbert. They had a spy on him, which made it harder for him to run. We needed Vidal to get going. He broke off a couple good runs, but he didn't have the game we needed. Yeah, another comments. We played terrible. I'm sick because I drink milk cold and now my throat burns. Yeah, yeah, that happens. You're physically sick, but I think all of us are mentally sick after that game. But it's a tough time, and there are going to be questions about Herbert. I've watched Herbert so much. I've been there. I record the videos. I post them for you guys from training camp. Herbert, to me, still is one of the top quarterbacks, but he does have to prove it in the playoffs now. Now it's 3 games, 3 losses, and I don't blame the Jacksonville game on him. I think he had a good game in that first playoff game, so I don't think you can put the Jacksonville game on him. That was terrible defense by the Chargers in the second half. That was Dicker missing a crucial kick. That was Eckler never getting the run game going. That was Bosa melting down after a referee ran after him. Weird stuff. So, yeah, Jacksonville loss isn't on him. Houston, our O-line sucked. Last night, our O-line sucked. But Herbert still didn't rise above it like he did all regular season. So there is that. So get him the O-line, get him a new OC. What kind of OC would you guys like to see? We know who Harbaugh likes. He likes guys who are going to run the ball, who aren't going to, take risky plays, put the ball in harm's way too much. But Herbert did throw a lot more interceptions this year than he did the last year when he only had 3 in the regular season. So, do you get one of these offensive coordinators who's really creative? Charger fans would love that, and to put points up like we did in the Staley era. But is that what Harbaugh wants? Because he wants to control the tempo. He wants to run the ball and milk the clock out like we did this year, like we did much this year, except we couldn't do it in the playoffs. And that's when it counts. You have to have that running game. You got to think about getting another running back to pair with Omari and Hampton and Vidal, because we saw Hampton get injured, and Vidal, he did his best, but we need another running back to go with the O-line, to go with the OC. A guy like Najee Harris, who's tough and physical, would be great. So who are some of the guys you would want at running back to pair with who we have? And what do you guys think? Do you bring Keenan back for one more year? You know, he had that terrible game last night, 2 drops, 2 key drops, um, and he didn't do much else. And does Keenan, you know, does Keenan stunt the growth of the other receivers? It's a fair question now. Richie says, bring in Mike McDaniel, OC, LOL. That would be funny. It would be funny, but hey, Mike McDaniel is a creative OC. You know, I can never see Harbaugh doing it, but you know. And Richie says no, retire Keenan. Ladd and him got the same play style, and that was a concern coming in. You know, these guys play the same slot position. They have the same style. And Ladd did not have a good season. You know, ask any fantasy football manager. Ladd disappointed in fantasy football if you drafted him high. So, yeah, I mean, maybe it's time for Keenan to go, and that'd be sad for Keenan to go out that way. It was so fun to see him again. You know, I was there in training camp, his first practice back, and the fans were so excited to have Keenan back, and he brought that energy. Those first few games, you know, the win against Kansas City and Keenan's scoring touchdowns again. And, you know, it looked great, but it did not end great. It did not end the way we wanted it to. And, you know, you hope Khalil Mack comes back for another year. He still hasn't won a game in the playoffs, just like Justin Herbert. And, you know, Mack is a free agent. He's probably the biggest one, but yeah, Owe, man, 3 sacks in the playoffs, a new Chargers record. I didn't know 3 sacks was the Chargers record, but Owe has it now. He's a free agent. You got to bring Owe back to pair with Thule, you know, and you'd like to have Mac back. Thank you, Richie, for subbing. Let's go Bolts. Man, yeah. Tough times, but I'm trying to stay optimistic because you know Joe Alt is coming back next year to anchor the left tackle. You won't have to worry about left tackle anymore with Joe Alt back. Can he stay healthy? You know, you need health, and the Chargers just have not had health. You know, there was an interesting post on social media going around about how the 49ers have this electromagnetic, you know, thing right next to their practice facility, and how there's a theory that causes all the injuries, how they're the most injured team in the NFL. Do the Chargers have that too? Because, you know, we're right there every year with terrible injuries. We just need 1 year to stay healthy. We need an O-line and we need an OC, you know, and it's like this team isn't that far off. You know, it looked like that way, you know, losing the way we did last night, but you just get a O-line and an OC, and this offense gets rolling. But now then you got to worry about Jesse Minter staying around, you know. But the good thing is at least Harbaugh knows defensive coaches. You know, he's been good at picking defensive coordinators. Offense has been the problem. So if Jesse leaves, hopefully we can get a new, you know, DC who keeps us right up there in defense, like we played last night, you know. And Deion Henley was on Twitter last night, responding to people who said he missed coverages. He's like, you guys don't know ball. You know, I wasn't even in coverage. You know, he was probably playing the spiral. And there was, you know, the Patriots said that Charger players came up to them after the linebacker that they had no idea what the defense was doing. Well, you know, and I said last night, hey, Greg Roman, you know, it's called man-to-man coverage. They were playing sticky man-to-man. You got to scheme up stuff to beat man-to-man. How did you not know that they could play man, you know? Yeah, it's just inexcusable. And you look at the last few playoff games with Greg Roman as the OC. You know, he only scores 3 points. Before that, 7, 7, 12, 13 points. And the big one, his very first game, he had 23 points. But that is not going to get it done in the playoffs. You know, they asked Jim Harbaugh if Greg Roman would come back, and he's like, I don't know. You know, you have to see. This is something that we have to look out at. And the only way we as Charger fans can take this team seriously is if you fire Greg Roman, get a new OC in there, just get a little creative at least to get these wide receivers open. And you need to get a new center, a new right guard, and you need a swing tackle just in case Slater isn't right next year, in case somebody goes down again, which we've seen too often. You have a guy you can plug in at right tackle, at left tackle, you know. So you must get a center, a right guard, a swing tackle. You know, it'd be nice to have another guy in the trenches at DT. Tier Tart was good. I think he's a free agent, so bring him back. But Caldwell was good as a rookie. But get one more guy in the trenches in there to stuff the run, to get up the middle, and bring Mac back. And hey, maybe get one more edge rusher, get another corner. Dante Jackson was great. Still had some issues in this playoff game, but still is usually very good. Cam Hart is up and down. St. Juice was up and down, but he was good in this playoff game. But yeah, I mean, there's not many holes besides the O-line on this team. You know, you're covered at linebacker with Dayon. Denzel is getting kind of old, but you got Troy Dye. We'll see if Junior Colston comes back and is finally healthy and fulfills the promise of, you know, what we thought Junior Colston can be next year. You got Derwin who wants, you know, who's going to need a new contract. So, you know, the roster is looking pretty good besides O-line, you know. So it really comes down to play calling, you know. And what did you guys think about that decision for Harbaugh to go for it? You know, when we were down in the red zone after we got that big turnover on Drake May, got the interception. You know, a lot of people were saying we should have just taken the points, taken the field goal, but we went for it on fourth down. We tried a corner fade to Keenan, which wasn't open. Big surprise, you know. But I liked Jim Harbaugh's aggressiveness to go for it on fourth down, you know, because you saw later in the game we needed that spark. If we had played with the lead, you know, maybe this is a different game, but the play calling was just not there to scheme anybody open in the red zone. So, you know, could things have been different if we had kicked a field goal and taken the lead early? I don't think so, but we'll never know. We'll never know. So do we finally move on from Bradley Bozeman? You know, the team has loved Bozeman. The coaches have loved him, you know, all accounts. He's a great guy. But the dude cannot pick up stunts to save his life. I mean, you know, and we were saying the same thing about Zion. Zion proved himself this year. He had a good year. You know, he wasn't an all-pro, but he showed he was solid, you know, and you have enough holes on this O-line, you know, keep Zion and you keep, you know, keep some guys that you've already had. So you know, have some familiarity with each other. But yeah, I don't think there's anybody who would say that we don't need to fire Greg Roman, get a new center, get a new right guard, and I'd add swing tackle in there too. And do you draft a new receiver too? You know, look, QJ, that was his third year, so he's got one more year before his fifth year option. You know, yeah, you could get another receiver in there if you don't bring Keenan back. Um, we needed a big X receiver. That's why we signed Mike Williams at first before we got Keenan, and and Mike just his body was broken down. He couldn't go. Uh, it's interesting to think would a healthy Mike Williams made a difference. The kind of guy Herbert could just throw a lob at. If teams are playing man like they were last night, you just throw it up and Mike Williams catches the ball. You need a guy like that. KLS could be that. He was injured. He didn't play last night. That's the kind of player KLS could be, but we didn't see enough of it besides the one game where he had a touchdown. He didn't get a lot of playing time because of so many receivers. So it's interesting. I think KLS could be that guy, but you got to see it on the field, just like you got to see Herbert win a playoff game. And it kills me that there's going to be all those doubters and haters saying, "Well, we told you so. Herbert can't get it done." I still believe in Herbert. He's our guy. Just like Philip Rivers was our guy. We ride with him till the end. Till the end. Until unless we get an O line next season, unless we get a new OC, and Herbert still, is having these issues. Like he underthrew Ladd, missing guys. If he has those issues next year, then we can talk. Yeah, Broncos fan in the house. Yeah, I'm sure the Broncos are happy they didn't have to play the Chargers, but you guys are still in it. So, yeah, you know what? I'd rather see the Broncos than the Chiefs, honestly. I'm glad we took the Chiefs out, that the Chiefs are done for now. You know, that was the happiest moment as a Chargers fans to knock out the Chiefs and to see the end of that dynasty, you know. And who knows? Maybe it's the Broncos' time. Me personally, I'm going with the Bills. Josh Allen. I'd love to see him. I'd love to see Josh Allen do it because he's had so many near chances with the Chiefs. Yeah, but uh, who do you guys think is going to take the Super Bowl this year? Now, it seems wide open. It could really be anybody. And the Jaguars were a team that got knocked out already. And they were a tough team during the regular season. We saw that with the Chargers, how they beat us down. Yeah, it may be the Broncos' time. It will never be the Chargers' time, brother. I don't agree with that. I don't agree with that. You know, have I respect the Broncos. You have a great defense. I'm not sold on Bo Nix yet. He's been good. Can he win in the playoffs? We'll see. He hasn't done it yet either, just like Herbert. Can he beat Justin Herbert? He hasn't done it yet. So there are questions about the Broncos, and they do have a great defense. So we'll see where it goes. It's going to be a great game with Josh Allen. He will put that defense to the test. So, yeah. How old are you, brother? Your whole life, you be failed. Yeah, Chargers. Look, I was rooting for the Chargers in the '95 Super Bowl, man. That's how old I am. I was rooting for Stan Humphries and big Natron Means, that running back who would just bowled people over, and Junior Seau, one of the greatest linebackers of all time, who beat the Steelers to make it to the Super Bowl and the AFC Championship in Pittsburgh. I remember that game. Nobody gave the Chargers a chance, and they went into Pittsburgh and beat the Steelers. That's the biggest win of the Chargers, franchise, beating the Steelers to go to the Super Bowl. And then, you go against the 49ers, who had a dream team with Jerry Rice, Steve Young, Deion Sanders. They were just stacked, and they were the better team. Um, but, people forget about the Phillip Rivers team that should have beat the Patriots to go to the Super Bowl and the AFC Championship, until Marlon McCree fumbled the ball away. He had an interception on Brady. All he had to do was go down, just go down, Marlon McCree. And Phillip Rivers, on a torn ACL, would have gone to the Super Bowl. Incredible that on a torn ACL the whole game, he got them in a position. He outplayed Tom Brady in the AFC Championship game on a torn ACL. That alone should put him in the Hall of Fame, and they would have been in the Super Bowl. Marlon McCree didn't go down. He fumbled the ball, gave it to the Patriots, and they won the game. So those are the biggest games in Chargers history. Yeah, as a Broncos fan, I've seen the Broncos 3 chips at any given time. Broncos can win a Super Bowl. Yeah, hey, the Broncos have won it. John Elway was great. Yeah, he won. He won back-to-back for the Broncos. Yeah, Peyton Manning won 1 Super Bowl for the Broncos. So yeah, you guys have seen it, but with this Chargers team, we're not that far off, guys. And you, as Broncos fans, should know that after we've beat you every time with Justin Herbert. So, get us an O-line, get us an OC, and this could be our Super Bowl next year, because it's wide open. There's the Broncos. We'll be competing with the Broncos for the division for the AFC West next year. The Chiefs, I don't think they're coming back with a gimpy Mahomes. He's not going to be able to run next year, which was his best quality, the last few years. He hasn't been able to pass the ball like he used to. And the Raiders aren't going to do anything. You already know that. So it's going to be between the Chargers and the Broncos for the division, and it'll be a good battle, and Jim Harbaugh knows that we need the O-line, and he's got to know deep down he can't keep going with Greg Roman, even though they're buddies. I'm sure he loves the guy. I'm sure he loves Bradley Bozeman. He knows he can't win with these guys. So you have to move on. You have to move on from them. And, even Broncos fans will have to be nervous seeing Joe Alt out there, seeing Rashawn Slater out there, seeing a new center, a new right guard, and a new OC. You guys already know what Justin Herbert can do. We know what Justin Herbert can do. It's the outside world. It's the world that only sees Herbert in the playoffs that are doubting him right now. We know he can make all the throws, that he can run when he needs to, that he can be clutch and make comeback wins. We've seen it time and again. Now we need to see it in the playoffs. We do. We haven't seen it in the playoffs, besides Jacksonville, which wasn't on Herbert. Every Chargers fan knows that. But, there are question marks. It's like, what happens with Jesse Minter? What happens with Keenan Allen? What happens with Khalil Mack? These are question marks. Yeah, talking about Justin Herbert choke a 27-0 lead. Look, the Chargers defense was terrible in Jacksonville. We had no run game. Dicker was missing kicks. I'm not putting that on Herbert. There was one play in the second half where he missed Keenan Allen. Could have been another touchdown. He missed him. And then Joey Bosa melts down after the referee went after him, which was really weird. And they got all kinds of penalties. And Jacksonville was not on Herbert. Not putting that on Herbert, who had almost 300 yards in that game. So, yeah. Um, yeah, we did stop putting up points in the second half. That was the time that was on Eckler, man, and the coaching staff because you need to run the ball when you're up 27 points. We kept running the ball right up the middle into a wall, like Charger coaches love to do. You run up the middle for 0 yards for 1 yard. That's what we did that playoff game. And that's what we did a lot against New England, guys. Besides a few great Vidal runs, we did not have the run game going like we needed to. Broncos are going to need to get the run game with RJ Harvey going, without J.K. Dobbins. So, people forget how important the run game is in the playoffs. And Charger fans know this. If you've been a fan since the LT days and seen LT go down in the playoffs and not be healthy, when we had our big chances, and you see LT on the sidelines, that was the same thing with Hampton the other day. You can't have Hampton not be healthy, and all the gamblers are really upset that he only had one carry. Well, he didn't look right, but it is weird he only got one carry, so that all the bettors would lose because he got a carry. Very strange. I wonder if anyone would ask Harbaugh about that. But Hampton wasn't ready. He wasn't right. He had a bulky knee brace, and you can't have a one-dimensional offense because, especially with a bad O-line, because then teams can just tee off on you all day long, and that's what they did at the end of the game with Herbert. He got battered and bruised, and he looked hurt, and he kept going like he did all season. That was the Chargers season in a nutshell. He got hit more than any other quarterback, all season long. He kept getting up, and the Chargers really shouldn't have even been in the playoffs. Any other quarterback in this Charger team would not be in the playoffs. But Herbert carried them there. He put them on his back. He ran when he needed to. He got tough touchdowns. He made the plays. And it just didn't happen in the playoffs that way when you run up against a really good New England Patriots team. So we'll see where this Patriots team goes. If they can beat the Broncos, if they can win the AFC, they have as good a shot as any with Drake May playing great. May was patient enough to take the checkdowns with Rashawn Stevenson having a great game. I think over 150 yards combined rushing and through the air. So that was the difference in the game. They were able to take the checkdowns, to take the easy plays, to make the big plays with those. And the Chargers weren't. Because of the offense, it didn't seem like we schemed that open, which we should have known going in. That was the way we were going to have to win the game, and we didn't. So what are your thoughts, guys? Keep the comments going. This is a therapy session for Charger fans, to let it all hang out, to talk about where we're going next year. Because after this, I'm, subscribe, like, all that stuff. After this, it's going to be live streams about movies, my favorite movies of last year. I do movie reviews. We'll talk about those reviews, the newest things at the theaters. That's what we're going to be talking about when there's nothing to talk about for Charger season, But I will be back next year, in training camp, getting you guys the Chargers highlights. You can rely on me for that. I am going to have my second baby boy, so it will be harder to get out to training camp, but I'm going to make an effort to get you those clips that I always do, those exclusives. Like, unfortunately, the Rashawn Slater injury that only I had the video of. Everybody was taking my video of that. Whatever. But yeah, I know it's a tough time right now, but I think next season looks bright with Joe Alt coming back, with Rashawn Slater, hopefully coming back. Today Broncos country woke up number 1 seed. Well, the whole AFC West is on the couch, so today is a good day. Yeah, good day for Broncos fans. Good day. You're the number one seed. Now go prove it against the Bills. You know, Bo Nix doesn't have a playoff win, just like Justin Herbert. So that if he loses to the Bills, that's going to become a thing now too, just like Justin Herbert. If Bo Nix loses two playoffs in a row, that's going to become a thing where can Bo Nix win a playoff game? He's got this great defense, you know. Next year you'll still be ringless, my brother. I yeah, I don't think that'll be the case, man. I don't think that'll be the case because this team, we got 5 draft picks, we got $110 million in free agency, the most of any team. You better believe that we're going to come and get an O-line and get a new offensive coach. And man, I don't see anybody stopping us with a new O-line and a new OC. That's when it's really who's got it better than us. That'll be the case next year. Herbert choked hard last night. Yeah, did not have a great game. Herbert did not have a great game. You'll never see a ring. Well, that's just like your opinion, man. Just like the dude. Hey, that's your opinion, and I'm feeling better about it next year, to be honest, because there's not many holes on this Charger team besides O-line. Yeah. Rough break with all the O-line troubles. Offensive line troubles were real this season. Most definitely. You didn't have your all-pro left tackle and right tackle, who the team was counting on, the coaches all expected those guys. Mekhi Becton was supposed to be a big upgrade at right guard, and he was honestly a huge letdown. You can't bring back Mekhi Becton. You can't have Bradley Bozeman as your starting center. He's not starting center caliber. Draft O-line. James says draft O-line round 1, 2, and 3. Agree, man. Get that center, get that right guard, get the swing tackle. There's no bigger holes on this team. So plug those guys in. Get one in free agency, get 2 in free agency. You have to make a big improvement O-line so Herbert doesn't get killed, so that Herbert doesn't become Andrew Luck, stepping away from the game early because he takes too many hits. And, that's not Herbert's personality. Herbert loves this game. I've met Justin Herbert. He has a genuine enthusiasm for the game, a love of the game. He wants to play. He wants to win. And I see that competitive spirit in him. That's why I don't worry about Justin Herbert. Yeah. Let's see. Keenan Allen drops last night weren't helpful either. Those were huge, to be honest. We could have kept the drive going. And these are catches Keenan normally makes. He's had a few drops this season. But when the bright lights come on, Keenan wasn't there. And he's at a point in his career, where it may be the end. I don't know. And you'd hate to see, for a Chargers legend, Keenan Allen, the most receptions in Chargers history, to end like that with those drops. Terrible way to end. Man, yeah. So we got the Broncos fan saying Herbert's going to end just like Rivers. That's the way it started. That's definitely the way it started. But I'll tell you the difference between the Rivers teams and the Herberts teams. Rivers has more. Herbert has more natural talent. Rivers was obviously a coach on the field. Herbert is a very smart quarterback as well. But Herbert has mobility, and this coaching staff absolutely sees the need to get Herbert an O-line. They know Rivers Rivers general managers, Tom Telesco, his teams, they never cared about, getting him an O line. They'd get him one here, one there. They never got him a complete O line. And Harbaugh knows that's the key. You get him an O line. Harbaugh knows this. So that's why I feel confident in the next season. Yeah. Uh, yeah, the Broncos guy. Just think your fans thought this was your year and the Chargers are done. Yeah, no, actually, our fans didn't think this was our year after Slater and Alt went down. Quite the opposite. We didn't think we would make the playoffs, and we had no business. And Herbert carried us to the playoffs without an O line. So, I would love to see Bo Nix without an O line do anything really. He is good at the checkdowns. He's a checkdown merchant, but yeah, we'll see what happens with them. Chargers collapse. I'm sorry you lost like that. You got a bad matchup, big time. Yeah, and a lot of people like this Charger matchup for us because we weren't going to see the kind of pass rush that you see from teams like the Broncos, teams like the Texans, and it was just sticky coverage really that killed the team until the fourth quarter when they brought the blitzes and we couldn't pick up the blitz. Yeah, it was more that sticky coverage than the pass rush that killed us for the most part. But Herbert was getting pressured a lot, like he does every game. So, yeah, man. So you look ahead to next year, and I'm telling you guys, I'm feeling good about next year. We get that center, we get that right guard, get another swing tackle just in case Slater isn't right. And it's going to be interesting to see who wins the Super Bowl this year. It will be. I've already told you guys I'm rooting for the Buffalo Bills. Josh Allen, love the guy. That's a team that lost. What was it? 4 Super Bowls in a row in the 90s. I remember watching those. Yeah, feeling sorry for Buffalo every time. So I'd love for Buffalo to finally get it. Yeah, new comment. You just look at it like this. Y'all crippled the Chiefs' confidence early. We all thank you for that. Yeah, yeah, we beat them that first game in Brazil. Neutral site, but there were more Chiefs fans. It was like a Chiefs home game, and yeah, Bills fan in the house. Appreciate you guys too. But yeah, it was great taking out the Chiefs, ending their season. That was the highlight of our season, I would say. And yeah, go Bills, Bills Mafia. Love those guys. When back in the 90s, I loved their team, honestly, when they had Jim Kelly, Thurman Thomas, Bruce Smith, Andre Reed. Big fan of what the Bills always, man. Doug Flutie, loved him with the Bills, with the Chargers. If you're an old football fan like me, the Bills had a big, strong quarterback with a big arm called Rob Johnson, named Rob Johnson, who took over for Doug Flutie. Flutie shouldn't have been replaced, but they saw this guy with a big arm, athletic guy, and old football fans could compare him to Herbert, but I think Herbert's a much better player. I think Herbert's clutch, and but the rest of the football world won't know that until he wins a playoff game. So, yeah, honestly, it's supposed to be their year. Patriots not in their way, but the fact of the matter, Mile High is a different Mile High is a tough place to play. It is. So you've got that home field advantage throughout the playoffs. It's going to be a tough place to play. If anyone can do it, it's Josh Allen, though. So you guys are going to have a good test. Herbert needs a better O line, a good O line, and the Chargers are elite. I agree. Completely agree. Make those changes, and Jim Harbaugh absolutely knows that, especially after this year. You need a new center, a new right guard, and then you get Slater and Alt back. Yep, keep Zion, and have a couple backups because we know the injuries are coming. Keep Trevor Penning at backup. Keep Bradley Bozeman as a backup. I'm fine with that. Yeah, I got a comment. Herbert is another Trent Dilfer. I don't agree with that. Herbert's got much more talent than Trent Dilfer ever had. Josh Allen on a short week, and he got banged up. So hopefully his O-line saves him. Josh Allen, yeah, he didn't get to rest like the Broncos, but he'll be ready. Josh will be ready. He's been in these playoffs plenty of times, unlike Bo Nix. So it'll be a good test. Now, the Buffalo Bills do not have the defense like the Broncos. So the Broncos have a big edge with that defense. Your defensive line will eat. Yeah, they very well could. If the Broncos get home on Josh Allen a lot, if he doesn't escape, Josh is a true Iron Man. Agreed. Great quarterback. Herbert and Josh Allen are my two favorite quarterbacks in the league right now. Love those guys. So, yeah. Who do you guys want to see on the NFC side? Now with the champion Philadelphia Eagles are out, will it be the Rams? Will it be the Bears? It could be any of the Seattle Seahawks. Josh Allen equals Dan Marino. Yep. Both had a big arm. Both were fun to watch. And Marino, never got the chip. Hopefully Josh does. We'll see. But yeah, it could really be anyone on the NFC. San Fran, you think San Fran upsets Seattle? It could be. And man, what a story with San Fran, who had so many injuries. Keep on going, and lost Kittle last night too. We had an opportunity. We just didn't take advantage. Bolts for life. I agree, Maurice. We had the opportunity. A lot of things went wrong. Yeah, a lot of things went wrong, and we couldn't take advantage. Another sad playoff game for these Chargers. Yep. And after you only score three points, you have to get rid of the OC, his vanilla concepts. Today's NFL, you just need more than that. Subscribe. Appreciate you, Maurice. Appreciate it. You can't be running these vanilla game schemes in today's NFL when you have so many guys who are great play callers who run complex schemes. Let's see. I think the Bears and San Fran for the NFC, San Fran to the Super Bowl. That'd be fun. I root for the underdog. Right now, San Fran would be an underdog. I'd love to see it. Trade Herbert for Raider, take Fernando, and pay players in free agency and win now. Yeah, I don't see that happening, but it'll be interesting for the Raiders with Fernando. Chargers aren't getting rid of Herbert. Yeah, I agree. We're not getting rid of Herbert. He's here for a long time. And Charger fans have faith in Herbert. We haven't lost faith in Herbert. You know, seeing him get battered behind a bad O line, you know how much this guy does to get to 11 wins. Name me another quarterback in the NFL who could have gotten to 11 wins with this offensive line and this coordinator. Uh, I couldn't pick one. Not even Josh Allen, to be honest. Yeah. So Superman will be in the building again next year. You know, his hand will be healed up. He'll be healthy. You get him that O line. He's going to pick teams apart. You know, remember that Dallas Cowboys game where we just shredded them in Dallas. That's what you have when you give Herbert an O line. So I don't see any team stopping him. You know, you need a OC who can get Lad open. Lad's the guy who can get open at any time. And what's he doing? He you know, he's got these terrible route concepts that he's not getting open. Yeah, especially not for untested rookie. Fernando is good, but the NFL is so different. Yeah, you never really know with these rookie quarterbacks. You know, you could get someone great, or they may have trouble even if they are good later on. You know, a lot of these rookies flame out early, and it takes them multiple different teams to finally, you know, do anything. Look at Sam Darnold. You know, there's so many quarterbacks like that. Look at even Caleb Williams last season. You know, uh, yeah, bro's probably pissed the Raiders are going to get him. Yeah, yeah. Yeah, it'll be interesting to see. You know, will the Raiders take a step forward when they finally get a quarterback? Who's their coach going to be? You know, who knows? AFC West teams against Cowboys is an automatic win. LOL. Yep, was this year. Yeah, yeah. Um, Man, I still remember that Thanksgiving Day game years ago when Keenan Allen torched the Cowboys. That was such a great game where Keenan had almost, you know, around 200 yards. He had a couple touchdowns, and the Chargers win in Dallas. Best Thanksgiving ever. Yeah, and those are the kind of things you're going to miss if Keenan doesn't come back. You know, it may be better for the growth of the team, for the wide receivers. You know, for Lad, for Trey, for KLS. It may be better if Keenan doesn't come back, but man, all those great memories with Keenan, and it's tough. You know, you want to send Keenan off properly. You know, the dream is to get Keenan and Mac a championship at the very end. Um, Either Herbert needs to go or Harbaugh needs to go. Unacceptable performance. I don't agree with that, Nicholas. I think Greg Roman needs to go. I think he's the one who needs to go. Some of the O line needs to go. That's what I'll say. Yeah, Keenan is washed now. My brother's sorry, not sorry. It might be time, you know, two big drops in a playoff game. You can't have that. It might be time, and it's sad. It's sad to see that. It is. It is. If that's the end, that's not the way you go. Greg Roman is trash. I think every Charger fan thinks that right now, honestly. Um, yeah, the Chargers just didn't match up well against the Pats. You want to blame anyone, blame the O line. Definitely O line. Definitely Greg Roman. Those are the two culprits that everyone coming into the season, we knew Greg Roman would be a problem. We knew the O line would be a problem, especially after Slater went down. And then when Joe Alt went down, it was like, man, are we ever going to win a game again without Joe Alt? And we win 11 games, which was insane. Only on the back of Herbert. Herbert needs a Shanahan or Sean Payton or McVay offense. That would be fun. That would be fun, you know. And early in his career, when he was a rookie, he did have that, you know, that exciting offense. He threw for 5,000 yards, you know, over 30 touchdowns, maybe, I don't know, was it 40 touchdowns that rookie year? Uh, so he had insane offenses, and the defense would let him down. Defense was terrible. So, you know, even Clint Kubiak will go out and get Mike McDaniel for OC. um, the only thing about these offenses that score a ton of points, will Harbaugh go for it because he wants to control the clock. He wants to run. He doesn't want to put up a ton of points, which is weird to say. As fans want to see the points, but Harbaugh isn't looking to put up a ton of points. He wants to control the game, control the clock. So you just need an OC who can be more creative than Greg Roman and still do that. So who is that guy? It'll be interesting to see. Got the best out of Herbert. I don't agree with that. During the regular season, yeah, and he didn't put up the numbers he did his rookie season when he put up 5,000 yards. But for Herbert to take this team to the playoffs, absolutely insane. But the playoff game obviously wasn't one of his best performances. I think if the Raiders get Harbaugh from Baltimore, Fernando, they could make a decent splash next year. I don't know about a winning season, but easily 8 or 9 or 7 and 10. Not great, but better. Yeah, I could see that if they hire John Harbaugh. And they could, we see teams in the NFL all the time turning around from worst to first. Raiders obviously have further to go than a lot of teams do, but yeah, they could get it. Patriots all game stacked the box and dared the Chargers to get creative and go vertical. Well, yeah, we did go vertical with Q, and there was pass interference. Should have gone vertical more. Needed the run game more. You needed the run to open up things, and besides a couple runs, we couldn't get it going. And I thought going in that would be a key to the game, and it was. And the Pats were able to run the ball. They got physical, and Stevenson was hard to take down, and that's what we needed from Hampton, and he wasn't healthy to do that. So that was big. Fernando Mendoza is another Johnny Manziel. He likes the booze. Hopefully he doesn't turn out like Manziel. Yeah, you never hope, even for the Raiders. I don't hope that kind of career on anybody. Yeah. But man, what a tough end of the season. But honestly, guys, I'm so pumped about the way the Chargers withstood the test during the season to win 11 games the way they did. Absolutely incredible. Herbert's play, incredible. I don't know how Kyle Shanahan pulled off that. What a brilliant game. Agreed. And the Niners were someone who battled injuries just like the Chargers, and they're continuing to go on because they have such a brilliant mind in Kyle Shanahan. And because of guys like Christian McCaffrey, they have their running back, their star running back. So that does make a difference. You need to run in the playoffs. It's a huge factor. You want to put it all on these quarterbacks, but they need a run game. Come playoff time, you need a run game and defense. We had the defense. We didn't have the run game. You want to put it all on Herbert? I don't think you do. There's blame to go all the way around. So, I'm not going to feel sad and depressed about the season by the way it ended, because we all knew as Charger fans that this O-line was going to let us down. We knew Greg Roman was going to let us down, and lo and behold, that's what happened. So you got to make changes. Without changes, no one's going to support this team. I'm the biggest Charger fan there is, with, sure some of these guys watching are too, but you can't support a Charger team if we have Greg Roman, if we have Bradley Bozeman next year as the starters. Hopefully Broncos win it all as AFC West view. Yeah, some fans love to pull for the AFC West. I could never pull for the Chiefs when they were winning, but Broncos, they haven't won for a little while. That's fine if you want to root for the Broncos, I think. Luckily, the draft is full of offensive linemen. Is this a good offensive lineman draft? I haven't studied the draft yet. Um, yeah, I've seen a lot of Charger fans rely on getting the Ravens center, Lindenbaum, or whatever his name is. Uh, the Ravens have a good center. That would be great to be able to go out in free agency and get him. He is going to be a free agent. Does he love the Ravens so much he's going to come back? Does the Harbaugh firing affect him? Does he want to go play for Harbaugh's brother? These are things that could affect free agency. They do have an effect. So maybe the firing of John Harbaugh was good for the Chargers if we get the Ravens center out of this. They are going to be cash strapped. They paid some big contracts and they're not going to have much cap space. So, how much of a priority is signing their center to a big contract? If they don't, Chargers scoop them up. We're right back in business, guys. So you get that center, and that's a huge piece of that, because then you're only looking at getting a right guard and backups, and you can do that. I don't see Denver beating Buffalo. Josh is making it to the dance. I'm going Buffalo too, but I could see Denver winning if their defense, just beats up Josh like the Patriots defense beat up Herbert. It's possible. I'm a Broncos fan and I like Chargers. 2, I wanted that AFC West title match, but it didn't happen. I would have loved to see that. Yeah, I would have loved to see Chargers and Broncos, especially since Bo Nix hasn't beat Herbert yet. You got that going in. That would have been fun. Denver's defense is good, but not better than the Jags, and we all know now how that went. That's true. The Jags did have a great defense, and the Bills pulled off that upset. So that's something Denver has to be worried about. It is. Oh man, it feels much better talking out this Chargers loss with you guys. We needed a therapy session after that game, that tough game. So many Charger fans were pumped too. I live in Costa Mesa. I went to the laundromat. I saw guys there wearing Justin Herbert jerseys, which you don't see. You don't normally see a lot of Chargers gear just walking around, but there are a lot of Charger fans in Orange County, and that last home game at SoFi against Houston, the security said that was the loudest game ever for a SoFi game, including the Rams, which I was proud of the Chargers. Chargers were 99% fans at that game. So the Chargers fan base is growing. We always get those shots. Chargers have no fans, though. We have a ton of fans. Yeah, a good rush defense doesn't matter when you have to let them score to stay in it. Josh is hurt. It's going to be an interesting game, guys. The Bills with James Cook too. Just if James Cook can get going, then the Broncos will be, in real trouble, because I don't think Cook got going much in that Jags game. You get him going, the Bills are going to be a problem. He won't be as mobile. Plus, we'll get gassed and playing in Mile High. Yeah, I've been to Colorado. I've been to Mile High. It is a thing. They always talk about it in sports with basketball too. You do get winded very easily because of that altitude. It is a different beast there. So a lot of teams, I think, try to travel there early, get acclimated a little bit to that altitude, and I think that helps. But that is a home field advantage for the Broncos for sure, and that could play a role. But for a guy like Josh Allen, who's just a beast, I don't see that. But we'll see. It'll be a fun game. That's a game I'll definitely be watching. So, yeah. So, as Charger fans, who's your team now that the Chargers are out? I'm playing fantasy football, playoff fantasy football. So, I'm interested in all these games too. I play a thing called Playoff Blitz, where you pick anybody you want every week, but you can only use a player once. So say you use Josh Allen last week, you can't use him again. Now you got to pick someone else. So you have to be smart so you don't run out of players. So it's a fun thing if you're into fantasy football. Broncos offense is going to underestimate the Bills defense. Bills defense is a beneficiary of the narrative that they're a bad defense. They stepped up the last few weeks. Yeah, look, the Jags, Charger fans have saw the Jags destroy us in that one game. Liam Cohen schemed up a great offensive game plan, and they kicked the Chargers' butts, just like he did when he was with the Bucs. And the Bills played great defense. They made Trevor Lawrence look bad. They got an interception at the end of the game. So yeah, if that Bills defense comes to play, Broncos are in trouble, man. Because we've seen, as Charger fans, we've seen Bo Nix. Sometimes he tries to make those deep throws, and he just doesn't have the accuracy with the deep throws. So he's kind of check down or bust, and if you come up with a game plan for that, we'll see. We'll see Josh on the sideline with the oxygen mask. Yeah, we'll see. We'll see. It'll be fun to watch. I think Josh is too much of a beast. That's what I think. But it should be a great game, guys. The Broncos should be favored in that game because they're at home. They have a great defense. So they should be favored. So we'll see. Does the Bills defense come to play? Yeah. And I have to say, I love Matt Money Smith. I love watching his Charger broadcasts. So that's a guy I try to emulate, when I talk about the Chargers. He's just a great announcer to me. And yeah, man, go Chargers. Josh or Herbert for Chargers. Chargers aren't going to get rid of Herbert. I love Justin Herbert. I'm a Herbert guy. I'm not going to say I want another QB. Herbert's my guy. Ride or die for Herbert, just like I was for Rivers, like I was for Breeze. Would it be fun to see Josh Allen with the Chargers? Sure, that'd be fun. But Herbert's my guy now. They're similar type QBs. Yeah, and Bills would never get rid of Josh either. I agree. Neither team would get rid of him. But I like them both. I'm a Herbert guy. I'm there in training camp with Herbert. I've met him. Great guy. Great kid. He's still grown into his own, And the type of throws you see Justin Herbert make in training camp, it's like, can anyone even make these throws? Maybe Josh Allen. True fan, you pass the test. Yep. Chargers, ride or die, man. Ride or die. I think McDermott leaves before Josh ever does. Yeah, you don't get rid of a quarterback like Josh Allen or Justin Herbert. You just don't. And that was tough for me when we moved on from Rivers, but at least Herbert was there right after, man. You can't go from better quarterbacks. And the very first Charger game I ever went to, Drew Brees was our quarterback, and I got to tell him that. I talked to him. He's proud of his Charger days. And it was Drew Brees, Phillip Rivers, and Justin Herbert. Name me a franchise with three better quarterbacks in a row. The Packers maybe with Brett Favre, Rodgers and Jordan Love. But yeah, it's hard to go three better quarterbacks than that. And I love Doug Flutie with the Chargers too. So longtime Charger fan here. If Bills beat Broncos and Harbaugh will be their coach. I mean, if Broncos beat Bills and Harbaugh, you think McDermott's out if they lose this game? I don't know. I see. I mean, he's done a good job. He hasn't taken them to the promised land, but yeah, this is a crazy league. Yeah, it could happen. John Harbaugh as a coach, teams want that they can move on from their own coach. Harbaugh brothers are great coaches. Man, we've been doing this for a while now. Should we keep going? What do you guys think? There's still 70 of you. That's pretty cool, guys. I appreciate all the comments, all the love, the likes, the subscribes. Yeah, let's keep going, guys. Let's keep going. But I'm curious for you Charger fans. Do you see it as a successful season? Overcoming the O-line injuries, overcoming, Greg Roman for the most part. It's an interesting question. I do. It's hard after the sting of that last loss to see it as successful, but I do. Let's see the comment. I think Lamar is a diva who probably got Harbaugh fired because of a crash out after losing to Pittsburgh. There were reports that Lamar and Harbaugh did not get along. That was kind of a big deal, that some players in Lamar did not want Harbaugh again, and that's why he was out. And I believe it, man. You got a star quarterback who clashes with the head coach, they get rid of the coach. That's just the way it is. Even though Harbaugh has been the Ravens, man. The Super Bowl, they wouldn't have won the Super Bowl without Harbaugh. So, yeah. We got some more haters for Herbert. And hey, that's fair until Herbert wins in the playoffs. People are gonna come after him. I don't feel that way. Anytime you win games, make it to the playoffs, have a chance, it's a successful season, brother. I agree. Anytime you make the playoffs, it's a good season. And we really shouldn't have. Without Slater and Alt, we shouldn't have been in the playoffs. All the Charger fans know that. Because then you measure up and see what you need to get to the next level. Definitely. It's clear as day. We need O-line. We need an offensive coach. And Charger fans can see that. And you just hope Harbaugh can do it sooner than later, can, rip the Band-Aid off for Greg Roman and Bradley Bozeman. And he's got to see that. He wants Herbert to go to the Hall of Fame. He knows Herbert needs to win to be seen as a great player, and he knows the path. Harbaugh knows the path. He's a smart guy. Very true. Just look at the Panthers. Hard loss, but clearly just happy they got there. Yeah, man. Hey, the Panthers almost beat the Rams in the playoff, and what an upset that would have been, huh? I mean, and the Panthers beat the Rams in the regular season. That was their great win of the year, and they almost pulled it off in the playoffs. And you got to think that fan base is very happy with that. And we were so close, the Chargers were, to winning the division. Man, if we could have won that Houston game, it would have been week 18 in Denver for the division. You know, tough game against Houston. Dicker missing kicks. J.K. Scott muffin punts. Um, just yeah, two blown coverages to lead to two long touchdowns out of character for the Chargers defense. So you got to look back at that Houston game as where we lost the division, and that's got to be a huge goal for the Chargers next year. You have to win the division, get home games at SoFi, get that 99% Chargers crowd that we had against Houston, and that's a big advantage, guys. Not just for the players, for the way they feel, but for the referees, man. And you've seen how many times the Chargers have been screwed out of the referees. You know, it wasn't there against the Pats, except that hit against Herbert's head, and they called it a sack. You know, you knock down Herbert by hitting his head, and that's a sack. That was the one play, you know, that was a terrible call. But the loss wasn't on the refs. But it's a big thing for the referees, you know, to be at home in the playoffs. So you need to win that AFC, which I think will be wide open again next year. Yeah, Panthers up and coming team for sure. Agreed. NFC is wide open now. As a Bills fan, I'm low key scared of Houston. Yeah, look, as a Chargers fan, we know all too well about Houston, them beating us in the playoffs last year in the game at SoFi this year. So yeah, there was a lot of Charger fans who would not want to see Houston again with that scary defense and the way they got after Herbert. Yeah, there was no way our O-line could stand up against Houston. So you got to worry about that if you're the Bills. Harbaugh has to get out of these friendships with Bozeman, Pipkins, and Roman at OC. He talks about those guys glowingly because he likes them as a person. That worries me. Yeah, definitely. And he brought those guys back, you know. They have the kind of character that Harbaugh looks for, you know, but they just don't have the skills. And it's a tough thing when you're friends with someone to say, look, man, you know, I love you. You're my brother, but you just can't get the job done. And that's exactly what Harbaugh has to do now. And you got to know deep in his brain, he knows that. He's getting asked about that last night. And he says, look, I don't know. These are things we need to look at. And to me, that was an answer that was encouraging, more encouraging than discouraging. Because before he'd say, you know, he'd defend these guys up and down, you know, and last night he's going, look, I don't know. And to me, that's saying, yeah, we need to make a move because he knows. He knows. Everyone's telling him this, all Charger fans, you know, the reporters, everything you see about the Chargers. Yeah, so there's no way that I really don't see a season where Harbaugh goes into it next year with Greg Roman and Bradley Bozeman. You know, I don't. And if it starts to look that way again, we as Charger fans have to revolt, man. You know, we gotta tell these guys we're not going to stand for it, and they have to know. Broncos are a scary team. You don't know what can happen. A lot of players have not have their breakout game yet. It's just a matter of time. Yeah, look, Broncos are dangerous. He's definitely got to have that. It's just business talks with his pals. 100%. 100%. And an interesting thing, I think, is what if Jesse Minter takes a head coaching job? Do you try to get your brother John as DC? Do you get John Harbaugh as DC if Minter comes? And does John even take that job, you know, since he could easily find a head coaching job? But man, that would be interesting. John as the defensive coordinator for the Chargers. I'd love to see it if Minter goes. What do you guys think? Would you like John Harbaugh as your defensive coordinator? Interesting question for sure. Chargers should hire Wade Phillips as defensive coordinator and Mike McCoy as offensive coordinator. Look, I Wade Phillips has been great, for what for forever, man. I love Wade Phillips. He's getting up there, but I love Mike McCoy. I think Charger fans are done with Mike McCoy after that head coaching disaster he had with San Diego. But interesting thing. I did a movie review on Wade Phillips' dad, Bum Phillips. I didn't know his dad was such an innovative football coach until this documentary. It's called Love You Bum, about the Houston Oilers football team and how much Bum Phillips influenced the game of football forever, changed a lot of things about it. So check out the documentary Love You Bum if you want to know about Wade Phillips' dad. Mike McDaniels would be a banger as an OC too. He's innovative. The only thing, like I said, would Harbaugh have it because he wants to he doesn't want to get into shootouts with teams that, he wants to control the clock, run the football. Can a guy like Mike McDaniels do that? As creative as he is, can he slow his game down? That's the interesting thing that I would see. But it would be fun. But you know what? Mike McDaniels teams do run the football a lot, with Miami, he had great run teams. So, yeah, I'm all for bringing Mike McDaniels if you can do it. Man, coming up on an hour and a half, me just talking to you guys. This is crazy. This is fun, guys. I love it. 77 viewers. Let's keep it going. Keep the comments rolling. Yeah, starting to lose the voice here a little bit because I was yelling watching the game. I'm sure many of you were too. Well, whoever your team was, cheering them on. Yeah. Broncos fans saved their voice though. They haven't had that game yet. But yeah, man, 80 viewers now. Let's go. Let's keep it rolling. Yeah. Besides Mike McDaniels, who else out there at OC would you guys like to see? Man, it's tough, and you'd like to trust a guy like Jim Harbaugh to pick a great OC, but it's hard when he's got a guy like Greg Roman there for so many years that he's stuck by, in San Fran and now with the Chargers that he's had for so long that he trusts. A coach wants a guy he can trust, will go along with his philosophy, his game plan. And they have to have that bond, From that standpoint, I can see why he's kept Roman, because I'm sure they have that bond where he can just come to him and say, hey, look, I need this, I need that, and he does it. But we've had enough. It's not working. It's time to go. Friendships will have to take second place to football. And Jim Harbaugh is a guy who absolutely loves football, who loves to win, who wants that last piece of a Super Bowl. He's going to do what it takes to win. You better believe it. So that's why I'm confident in these Chargers. Harbaugh will do what it takes. He will make the changes. And we will know going into the season if this Chargers team is a team that's going to contend for the AFC West for the Super Bowl. We'll know because we'll be able to see the pieces, the guys on the O-line. And we know what Herbert can do, what these weapons can do. Add one more weapon, add one or two, what this defense can do. The worst place for your Charger fan to be is if we go into next year without that O-line, with Greg Roman still there, with Jesse Minter gone. That would be an all is lost, worst case scenario. I can't see that happening. as a optimistic person, as a Charger fan, as someone, who watches Jim Harbaugh and how he operates, he's not going to let that happen, you know. So, enjoy the rest of these playoffs. Whoever takes this championship, enjoy it. It may be a one and done like Philly, but for a fan base who has never won like the Chargers, you take one and done. You take it. Um, and you got to think maybe next year is the Chargers' year. We get those O line. Oh, and the other thing, when the draft comes up, what if we don't take O line in the draft? Then you're like, man, the only way to fix this is free agency. Yeah, you got to at least draft 2 or 3 O linemen in the draft, or bolt up. Definitely. I hate the Chiefs. Great screen name. All Charger fans hate the Chiefs. We're sick of that. Sick of that team. Great to knock them out. Yeah. Hopefully we don't hear from the Chiefs for a few more years. But yeah, you got to draft at least 2 or 3 linemen with our 5 picks in the upcoming draft, and then you just plug other holes. And this team doesn't have many. Joe Ortiz has done a great job molding this team, I will say, besides the O-line, besides the interior of the O-line. Ortiz has done a fantastic job turning this team around. You think about how many holes this team had, after Brandon Staley, how bad this defense was. To completely turn around the defense, to give Herbert offensive weapons. Great job, Ortiz. He has, through the draft, through free agency. He's picked the right guys, and guys just getting hurt besides the interior of the O-line. And part of me thinks that we didn't get a new center is because he just didn't like what he saw. He didn't like what he saw in free agency. Teams were overpaying linemen, crazy deals. He didn't want to do that. He wanted to have the flexibility of this year to find someone. The only criticism is he could have drafted more linemen, and he should have. That's where the only criticism you could have of Ortiz. He should have drafted 2 or 3 more linemen. Maybe this year would have been different, maybe not. But now with all the cap space, the $110 million, the draft picks, you have no excuse to bulk up this O-line when it's been such a weakness. And you go into next year strong, man. Next year with a healthy Herbert, healthy line, plenty of weapons for Herbert. Ronde Gaston is only going to be better. One of the best young tight ends in the league. He's only going to get better. He needs to improve more at blocking. He'll do it. You get healthy Hampton back, hopefully for a whole season. You run on teams like you wanted to. Get a guy like Najee Harris. Man, I am excited. I'm still excited for this Charger team. What are you guys? Are you guys excited for next season? Do you see the optimism that I do, or are you waiting until you actually see who we get to feel this way? It's fair either way. It's fair. Charger fans have been through a lot, heartbreaking losses. The Packers had a heartbreaking loss to the Bears. Charger fans know it all too well. I was watching the game with a Packers buddy and a Bears buddy, and I just had to tell my Packers friend, Chargers have been there. I know how you feel. Yeah. So it's time. It's time for the Chargers to get their wins. It's their time next season. It is our time. And, teams of other fans are going to doubt us. They're going to say, no, you're never going to win. like they're doing in the comments here. And that's fine. Broncos fans know. They know what we can do with Herbert. So, you know, just see. Just see. Mess around, get an offensive line, and find out. Oh, man. I love this team. I've loved it ever since Drew Brees, ever since the '95 Super Bowl. To be honest, when I rooted '94, '95, when we went to the Super Bowl, rooting for the Chargers. Then finally, my first game at Qualcomm with Drew Brees, was it 2002, 2003, something like that. Saw him play the Broncos. I saw Junior Seau play for the Chargers. Such a great player, man. I saw Antonio Gates, LT. Man, what a team! So many Hall of Famers, so many legends. And meeting guys like LT and Gates, later on, and shaking their hand and telling them what they meant to me. Being at the game where Antonio Gates broke the all-time record for touchdowns by a tight end on New Year's Day. I was there, man. I shook his hand. I told him, his face lighted up. He's like, "That's cool, man." Yeah. Overcoming many things to get to the game that day, overcoming a hangover on New Year's Day, overcoming the long drive to San Diego from Orange County. Well, actually, I was in LA, going from LA to San Diego. Always be a Charger fan. These losses, they're just going to make the victory that much sweeter, to be honest. And I do see that coming. I see the light at the end of the tunnel for the Chargers. And hopefully you do too, if you're a Charger fan. I'm seeing in the comments, the bolt up, yeah. And there are the haters too, saying Herbert's going to be another Rivers. And a Chargers fan saying that Herbert's going to be another Rivers. They're going to mess up his career. Been a fan since Dan Fouts days. It's a fair question to wonder. It's a fair question to wonder. It is, because we've seen it. We've seen it all. And what I said before, the one difference I see is this team knows we need an O-line. It was like the teams of the past, they were cool with getting one good O-lineman and stopping there. No, I think this team with Harbaugh knows they need to overhaul, the interior. They need Bozeman gone. They need a right guard. They need a swing tackle in case somebody goes down. The teams of the Chargers past did not know that. They didn't know that. And I think Harbaugh will get rid of Greg Roman. And that'll be the difference, man. That will be the difference. Rivers always had bad luck. He'd have a bad defense. He'd have bad special teams. He'd have a bad O-line most of the time. He did have Hardwick for a little while. He had a good O-line, and then he'd have a bad defense and bad special teams. And it never came together. It was so cool to see Rivers back this year, to see him slinging it, to see the joy he had. I'll always love Rivers, always root for the guy. So cool to see him at 44 years old come back to do what he did. Without a doubt, a Hall of Famer. I'm a Charger fan, so I'm biased, but you got to put Phillip Rivers in the Hall of Fame. The career he had, the stats alone should put him in there, but the heart, the fire, playing on a torn ACL in the AFC Championship, just playing in it, never mind outplaying Brady when he should have won it. Just a legend, Phillip Rivers, to the end, man. And I met that guy too. He was fun. He was fun. You could tell the fire in Rivers too. Yeah, no worries. Rivers has to wait another 5 years before he can get in. Yeah, he has to wait. That's fine. Yeah, the funny thing about him having to wait, he's fine with it because he gets his family on health insurance again. These players lose the health insurance after 5 years, and now he gets it reset for another 5 years from playing. With all those 10 kids, he gets to have them back on health insurance. So I think he'll trade waiting to get in the Hall of Fame for 5 years for that health insurance for his kids, which is absolutely insane that the NFL doesn't give health insurance for life for its players who get battered and concussed in CTE, that they can't get health insurance because it'd be costly for the NFL. They don't want to do it. But baseball gets it for life. Crazy. Um, yeah. Uh, Getting Jesus comments in here. That's weird. Okay. Um, but yeah, um, it's a fun time to be a fan because the NFL is wide open right now. You don't have the Chiefs blocking the way like they did for so many years. You don't have Philly running it back. So it's wide open right now. And you got to think next year will be wide open again, too. So that's the fun thing about the NFL. The NBA has gotten kind of where you can kind of predict what's going to happen, and that's not fun. I used to be a huge basketball fan. Lakers still, you see the Lakers pillow in the back. I'm still a huge Lakers fan. Luca, love Luca. A lot of people have a problem with LeBron, but yeah, Kobe, Magic, all these guys, always been a fan. But I hate when a league is predictable, man, like they were with the Chiefs, where you know, you knew the refs were going to give the Chiefs the call to win the game. You knew they were going to win that, and that's gone now. That makes it exciting. You know. Um, so, will it be a team like the Rams? I've got a good friend. I do a podcast, OC Dudes, with a guy named Jose, huge Rams fan. To be honest, I don't like the Rams. Whose house? Whatever, guys. Whatever. Um, yeah, they haven't been the greatest to Charger fans, but uh, but anybody can take this. Anybody can take this. Um, Man, an hour and 43 minutes. Still got 80 guys, 80 people watching. Thank you. Appreciate you. Um, yeah. Where do we go from here? I mean, in the show. What do you guys want to talk about right now? Drop a comment. Um, I think we've covered so much. I think we have. It's what, almost noontime. Um, but yeah, let's keep going. If you guys are down, you know, I'm here for the fans. I'm a fan. I I'm lucky enough to get to do red carpets sometimes and do that Hollywood thing, and it's fun to meet celebrities, players, these people who seem larger than life. They're really just normal people with more. They get a lot more attention and money, obviously, than the average person. But you know, it really is true that they're just people, and they're just trying to do the best for their families, and you have to respect that. Um, we all want the best for our family. Um, you know, I know we take sports so seriously. It's live or die, it seems like at times, but it all comes down to family and protecting them, loving them, and you want the best for them, you know? Uh, so Chargers, Bolt fam, you guys are my family. You know, you guys have been a great fan base. Uh, all the love you guys give me, you know, on social media. Uh, can't thank you guys enough, really. You know, um, especially during camp time when I'm providing all those highlights and you know I'm getting all the love from the Charter fans. You know, I feel it. I feel it, guys. So thanks for sticking with me. You know, I hope you stick with me through the movie reviews in the off season. You know, um, and check out OC Dudes where we talk about sports too and movies and the OC, living in the OC, places you can go. Um, but man, uh, yeah, tell me what kind of content you guys want too. You know, OC Dudes was thinking about doing, you know, how Bill Simmons does a rewatchables podcast. We were thinking of something similar. You know, watch old movies, give our takes about it. So hopefully that's something you sports fans are into also. You know, we'll give that a go. So check out that on OC Dudes. Here I'll still be doing live streams, do live streams on movies, on big events. You know, I was just at the Astra Film Awards on Friday. Sharon Stone gave this scathing speech at the awards where these young kids at her table didn't know who she was, and she just went off on them, man. She let them have it in her speech multiple times, and that's on my channel if you want to see that. Adam Sandler with a funny speech, and then he made it poignant at the end. He had everyone say happy birthday to his sister with cancer. Uh, you know, we all go through these life things, man. We know people with cancer. We have family fighting things. It can be tough, and all you can do is be there for them, do your best, love what you love, enjoy this life while you're here, man, because it's so fleeting. You know, we're on this earth for such a short time. I'm getting older. I'm an old dude, you know. Uh, but man, would I love to see a Chargers championship before I leave this earth, you know? And all fans of their teams want to see that, you know. We live and die for these teams. We you know, I'm a season ticket holder. I have been since 2015, the Chargers. We go to the games, we you know, we tailgate, we have fun with the fans. We buy all the gear, you know. I've got so many Charger jerseys, you know, going back to I got Drew Brees and Doug Flutie all the way to the, you know, to Ladd. Um, and we put our hearts and souls into this, you know, like the players do. We it gets serious, man, because you know we get ribbed by our coworkers, by other people when our team does bad. You know, we get the jubilation when they win. You know, the excitement. So so thank you for joining and being on that journey with me. You know, we're coming up on almost 2 hours. Uh, Crazy. Um, so if you guys want any more comments, get those comments in. I think we'll probably wrap it up by 2 hours. You know, I think unless you guys just have to keep going. You know, I'm here for you guys. Uh, just the biggest Charger fan, and but I'm here for all NFL fans, man. It's cool that other fans can jump in. You know, Bills, Broncos, Dolphins, whoever, man. I'm not here to unless you're the Chiefs. You know, we don't want any Chiefs fans. But yeah, it's uh, it's been a great season, guys. I hope you follow me through the journey. I'm gonna have another baby boy, so it may be harder for me to do these live streams. With two kids, um, with a crying one all the time. I may have to do a live stream outside in the car or something. You know, just to talk to you guys. But I love it. I, being a fan and just loving this team so much. Uh, I wouldn't have it any other way. Um, Man, what a season! What a what a journey as a Charger fan. You know, for so many years. This we need to see this through. Harbaugh knows he needs to get us a championship, and I believe he's going to do it. I really believe it. If Jim Harbaugh can't figure out a way to fix this O line, to fix this offense, who's going to come save the Chargers? You know, who will do it if Harbaugh can't? So you got to put all your faith in Harbaugh, in Justin Herbert, in so many guys on this defense, in Ladd McConkey, stepping up again next year. And even QJ, look at the redemption for Quentin Johnson, how so many fans hated this guy. And I was one of the few who stuck with Quentin Johnson from the beginning, saying, hey, he's a rookie. Give this guy a chance. I'd see other guys heckle him at home games. Like, come on, dude. This is our player. And I saw him putting the work in the offseason, staying late when other players went home. And then look at the season he had. It didn't show up in the playoffs, but look at the impact he made in this season, pretty much being the Chargers' number one receiver. So, you can count guys out, but you give them the tools like Harbaugh does to succeed, and they're going to do it. And you better believe when Herbert gets an O-line, he's going to succeed with Harbaugh. He will. And all these fans of other teams, just be ready. Be ready. That's all I can say, man, because Charger fans know it. You get Herbert an O-line, and this dude's going to come through. So Nicholas says, just looked at the draft class. It's very guard heavy. I don't know if that's what they need. We do need a right guard. Because you're not bringing back Becton. You can bring Penning back as a backup right guard. So we need a right guard. We need a center. So maybe it comes down to we have to get the Ravens center, Lindenbaum. You get the Ravens center and you draft a right guard, and hopefully you can get a swing tackle somehow. Maybe one of these guards who's also a tackle. Man. So. Yeah, I think this, this team is a team that can do it. I still have faith. You draft that right guard, you get the center from the Ravens, and then what happens if he goes back to the Ravens? Then you're back to square one, man. Then you're looking all around the league. You see what's there. There will be some other options. There will be. So, but everybody knows that's what they need to do, and they'll do it. They will do it. Ortiz and Harbaugh will work together to get this turned around. And if by some reason they don't, if out of friendship they don't want to do it, then we say that that's enough. That's enough as Charger fans that, you know, we can't keep going to the games and supporting this team if you're not going to get it, a new O line, if you're not going to get rid of Greg Roman, you know, uh, you do what Charger fans do during most of the season. You sell your tickets. It seems like Charger fans show up at the end of the season after we've secured a playoff berth. That's when the Charger fans show up. They like to sell their tickets before. I'm there the whole season, but if you don't make these moves, I mean, what else? How other way are you going to tell the Chargers that that's not what you're down for than to not show up at games, to not support the team the way that we do? So it's new O-line or bust. Get new OC or bust too. And everybody knows it. It's not a secret. So as soon as they can make these moves, that is when Charger fans will be happy. And there's always the injury curse. Are we next to the electromagnetic field? I don't know. You can only hope. You can only hope that that's not the case, that we don't have these devastating injuries that we always do. But go Bolts. Bolts up, man. Love you guys. Yeah, but is there anything else you guys are wondering or want to talk about, before we wrap this up? Going on 2 hours, insane. Appreciate you guys, really do. 87 of you watching right now. Thank you. But yeah, remember to subscribe, smash that like button. When there's more Charger news, or if you guys want me to come back, do a live, later in the playoffs, even though the Chargers aren't in it, to talk about the rest of the teams, fantasy football, let me know. I'll come back if that's what you guys want, or we'll talk about movies, So appreciate everything. Yeah, let's do another 2 minutes to make it an even 2 hours. Let's do it, unless you guys have more comments rolling in or anything like that. But man, I just got love for everyone, man. You don't have to be a Charter fan. Just humanity, dude. We got to show more love to our common fellow human in these times, especially where it's so divisive, where people are split down the middle. Just love people, man. Just be there for anyone going through a rough time. Just be there for family. Um, let go of the hate. Let the love in, man. That's what this life is about. Finding those people you love, and just trying to accept everyone else, and being a good human to everyone, man. That's what I gotta say. Look out for your fellow human beings, especially in dark times. That's all you can do. Be the best you, man. Be the best you can be in victory, in defeat, in love and death. Do all that you can, man. Because we only got one shot, one opportunity to live this life, and to enjoy it, and to be there, and to not hurt anybody. So like the great Stan Lee, who I met a few times. Enough said, man. Enough said. Bolts up forever. Love you guys. See ya.